My name's Austin Blau, and I'm a composer for video games, interactive media, and really anything else that's interesting me at the time. So, what is Feedback Drones? Feedback Drones is basically a drone VST library, but it's within the Triumph Audio engine, and so it allows you to do a multitude of different things within a drone library. So it's not just ambient sounds, it's actually a whole soundscape and world for you to play within all these really cool drone sounds and effects and filters and sequencers. It's really, really fun. For me personally, I love the library. Feedback Drones is awesome. It's really unlike any other drone library I'm used to, and that has a lot to do with the sounds that they chose, which is more of an organic sound quality than just a synthetic quality, which is what makes the patches feel more useful to me personally, at least. And the fact that they have that within the engine is what allows it to breathe and push and pull, and there's just an endless amount of possibilities within one library, which is always really, really fun. So I love it. So because of that, I decided to use Feedback Drones in this track in a way that was a little bit more unconventional for what you'd expect, which I thought was fun, because Feedback Drones, I think more people would typically be ready to hear some kind of an ambient track, a spacious track, but instead I wanted to showcase how far you can go with it, and I created Nebulous, which is a track that's more of like a harder EDM track that has like some cyberpunk undertones in there. The reasoning was really just to showcase how far you can go with it by using mainly feedback drones. Like every synth in there is feedback drones. Even some of the percussion is feedback drones. It's really, really fun to make. So I actually helped program some of the patches, and those were the patches that I actually used for this track too. So I thought it was a really nice way of working with the patches that I had helped program and design for feedback drones for Triumph Audio, and use them in an actual track. That way you're not just getting patches that seem cool but aren't really useful. I actually used them. I probably used more than half of the patches that I made within feedback drones, which was awesome, because then you get to just go right off of them, and they're just so easy to use without having to add too much on. So it was just effortless for me personally, because it was right there and they worked perfectly within the track itself. It was great. And so the only thing that I didn't use from feedback drones in the track were some percussion instruments like the kick and the snare, some production elements like some risers, some impacts. But besides that, every single thing on there is feedback drones, including some of the parts that Kevin Manthe very graciously added in. Although they're wave files, the sounds themselves were made within feedback drones. So almost the entire thing, I'd probably say more than 80% of it is all just feedback drones. Hi, my name is Austin Blau, and I'm a composer for interactive media, video games, stuff along those lines. And the team at Triumph Audio and Kevin Manthe had asked me to write another track for their newest library. That would be feedback drones, which is awesome, by the way. I'm basically going to walk through the track that I wrote, which currently on the top says FD, Feedback Drones Track Demo. So it's a mystery. And it was actually really fun. On the first track I wrote for Ghost Cello, their other library, which is also great, I wrote something that fit within the lines of what I think the BST was written for. Kind of made sense in that regard. Whereas this, I felt like made more sense just to go in a completely different direction, probably than what Feedback Drones was initially designed for. But they were super encouraging. Kevin was actually more the one saying, like, just keep going crazier. So yeah, this is not a very droney song, which is great. But let's just dive right in and see how it sounds. So basically, we can start with what you're probably hearing initially, which are some of these patches. So typically whenever I'm writing stuff like this, I like to have a multitude of layers just to emphasize how large the main synth can sound. So I made a lot of these patches I made as presets that are included in Feedback Drones. But one of the main ones that I knew was a main inspiration for this track was actually Plasma, which is, I mean, you'll see tons of plasma on here. I think I go all the way down to K for how many, because I'll do A, B, C, multiple different versions. And some of these are just because, honestly, I've done different versions of the track. But a lot of it is just because of, I think I've explained a different video in the Ghost Cello video, lazy mixing. It's easier for me a lot of times just to duplicate the track and then drop down some volume on it, just bring the fader down instead of doing actual automation. It's just quicker, and I have a computer that can handle instances of this large patch that you just duplicate. So I use it to my benefit if I'm not doing anything super large when it comes to automation. That's basically what's going on there. What you'll probably be seeing on a lot of these too, because this is more of an EDM track, I'll be using LFO tool a lot. With tracks like this, I think you could do sidechain compressing, which is awesome. It's a great way of doing that. I like the cleaner approach, which is literally just volume automation, but done with an LFO. That way you're actually working with it consistently, and you don't really have to worry about the settings of the compressor, because there's a lot of factors that go into working with the compressor to make it sound the way you want. I like it personally to do LFO tool if I'm doing a consistent drum beat, because when I'm doing that, all of these tracks have LFO tool on it. I can't say that word, LFO tool. Then this is what happens. You have this. So it's literally just ducking it. I'll do. All it's doing is just getting rid of some of that open sound. That way, the initial attack that you're getting from the kick drum, and especially if you want a little bit more of the weight of the kick drum, because waveforms for low-end frequencies are a little bit longer, you'd want to have it be a little bit more open when it comes to how wide the tool is. And this is all, personal preference on how you like to do things. But with this percussion that I had in there, it just works a lot better. I mean, that in and of itself could just be like a really cool cyberpunky kind of track. But yeah, I think that's just honestly an interesting point to the track that helps for mixing, for doing these kinds of cool like EDM tracks. So beyond that, we can look at some of the rhythms, which also are really made up of a ton of different patches, presets, whatever you like to call them, that I also made for feedback drones. There are things like aquatic invasions, which comes in really slowly because of automation. Very basic automation. Ghouls is a fun one. Once again, LFO tool helping out. Just gives it some more rhythm. Questionable resonances. There's also this thing called Syndrome, which was really fun to make. It's a little bit harder to hear, but obviously a little bit later on, you actually hear most of it. Like, this is probably a good example. Which is basically, there's a multitude of things going on. Obviously, LFO tool is on there to help for the kick drum to breathe in. But when it comes to working and designing the patch for within feedback drones itself, a lot of it was just messing with the two filter areas that you have set up for the rhythmic engine, for the rhythm engine. The step sequencer obviously is just a great way to automate your volume going into the filters, and then the filters allow you to just kind of carve in some more movement. Generally, I just think it's a really fun way of coming up with movement and rhythm, and then on top of that, adding in something like LFO tool, or if you're doing actual sidechain compression or automation, which would take forever, but that would be the opposite of what I'd want to do, then you get even more rhythm on top of this. So honestly, a lot of this is just base level. Like Syndrome is just included in there, so it's not like it's anything special beyond what the patch is designed for. I mean, a lot of it is this different distortion that's on there to help it breathe in and out within the filter, because the filter is filtering in and out a lot of the distorted effects to it, so you kind of just get this nice movement to it, which feels really good, especially with a kick drum in there, which if we throw that back in, and then yeah, just basic percussion stuff. Funny enough, little secret in there, because I thought it was really fun, the hi-hats per se, if you want to call them that, are also feedback drums. The hi-hats are a little rave lead. I'll play it a bit. They're not like super hi-hatty, but they sound like some good hats. With the drums, it works. Clearly they were digging it. It's not the most inventive drum beat rhythm design that I've ever done before, but it works for the track. I wanted to more write something with feedback drones, not with this basic percussion setup that I designed, which I was using different things on here. I mean, Kick 2 was used for the kick and the snare, and it's a great plugin. It's really fun. But mainly feedback drones is what's driving the whole thing, which is what's really fun. Beyond the rhythms, you have some different pads that I used. Moonlight Skies is really fun. It's very moody, obviously. I think the chorus is adding a lot to that, honestly. It's really helping. But that just kind of helps to breathe in these sections. Especially when it comes in more prompt. So it just adds more emotion to the track, just something a little bit more interesting. I have some basic bass patches in here that help to just have a little bit more low end. Some more drama, basically. Beyond that, which is using Growl Long Bass 2. I actually really love that patch, which was made by the team at Triumph Audio. I didn't use everything myself. It wasn't all made directly from scratch. So a lot of these are just presets that are built in there that are really fun. The leads, there's a bunch of different things on there. I think Room Scare, I believe I made. I don't even remember. I think I did. Yeah, that sounds like me. Really annoying. And just really pinchy. It's really supposed to be there to cut through. So this really helps to cut through the mix. So it sounds really annoying and pinchy on its own. But the idea is, in the mix, you have more something like this. If I was only using the really reverberated piece, then it just kind of falls off into the background, but you want some of the dispersion of the reverberated lead as well. A little bit of dissonance from that, which is not so bad for a track like this. There's a lot of dissonance in this track. And then there's some really cool, interesting things like the cassette looper lead is a cool patch. I thought Icy Strings was really inspiring, so and actually Kevin Manthe, very kindly of him, graced me with some incredible ideas. We were just talking back and forth about the track, and he was like, actually, I got some ideas. And then I didn't hear from him for like an hour or two. And he came back and he was like, all right, here's all this stuff. And I was like, this is awesome. So we talked back and forth on what worked well in certain versions, because there's different versions of the track that we did, essentially. So for this one, which was more the main full track, I kind of chopped it up the way that I would like it to sound and the way I'd like it to work. And so all of these sounds are from feedback drones. And he had sent me in, I believe, some photos of what the actual patches were. It eludes me now. But these are also all from feedback drones, which were really cool. Just like super ambient, moody. And then one of them was a perfect lead-in. That's so cool. I love it. So I separated that one on its own just to really pull it in more. Because it does the same thing here. And then that opens up. And then he did this awesome thing where he recreated some of the melody in the last section and threw it in his own way. That's so cool. I love it. That's so dope. It works so well. He's ridiculous. It sounds so good. And then there was a little outro piece, which was also perfect. He's a genius, clearly. Uh, and then, yeah, everything else on here, there was some effects tracks, which that's really all just stuff that I like to throw in. Honestly, on this track, I was a little lazy. A lot of times I like to create these on my own, or at least use something like Rise and Hit to create some of it. A lot of these are the same things. I've learned over time what I like when it comes to risers and impacts, and I like to try new things a lot, but when I'm writing something and focusing on something else, I'll go back to what I know works really well to support everything that's in there. So all of these are just, random sounds. White noise is a good thing that you can use with LFO tool just to kind of have some good weight to it, or not weight, actually the opposite of it. You're kind of filling the space on the top end of the frequency spectrum, because sometimes you don't always fill it with mid-range synths. It helps. Production. It's fun. They really help. They're really useful. The percussion's super basic, which I went over. And then Heavy Synths 2 is for a different version of the track. But that's pretty much it. That is how the whole track works. I mean, it's nothing crazy relatively. It's just a bunch of fun. It's something that is in a style that I'm a little more used to doing, this kind of electronic, heavier style. But at the end of the day, it's not like a crazy amount of tracks. I'm usually used to going up to around 150 or 200, depending on what the kind of track is. But in all honesty, I didn't have to do that. There was a lot in feedback drones that allowed me to be more inspired, in the sense that the patches were already working within a mix. They already worked for me very easily. So although for that main piece, I mean, I'm always doing multiple layers for synths, there are other sections, like I rarely ever am able to just have one synth work as like the main synth that's going on. And that one, well, now I've blown this all out of proportion. I can't see anything. Where it is somewhere in here, and I will find it. It's one of these unknowns. Click, click, click. It is one of these. Hit my nose on this thing. Syndrome. It was super. I'll learn how to speak in another video. That one's coming up. It was really useful. Syndrome, when I designed the patch, was very rhythmic, but the fact that that's all I needed as that one section, normally I would take that and then duplicate it and distort that and then compress another duplication of that and then drop the octave below it and then use that, and it would be like a whole multitude of layers based off of one patch. I didn't have to do that at all. It was just right there. So I normally don't get to do that, and it was super easy and useful just to be able to use feedback drones in that way. I think the engine, like for Ghost Cello, just kind of spoke for itself. It was insane. As you can see, there's just so much you can do in here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching, and thank you if you actually got this far. You're a trooper. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But yeah, thank you for sticking around. Honestly, check out Feedback Drones. It's amazing. Every time I go back into this, I want to keep making more and more patches. It's just too much fun. So I recommend checking it out. Check out triumphaudio.com. They have some really cool VSTs already out. Obviously, Feedback Drones and Ghost Cello, and I think they have some more in the works. So yeah, I'm Austin Blau, and thanks.